The U.S. Transportation Security Secretary announces new FAA action to ensure safety in airspace. This comes on the heels of the crash in Washington, D.C. So it's the Department of Transportation is saying Washington, with the support of President Trump and in consultation with the Secretary of Defense, effective today, the Federal Aviation Administration will restrict helicopter traffic in the area over the Potomac River around Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, DCA, and stretching to the Wilson Bridge. These areas include Memorial Bridge to South Capitol Street Bridge, excluding the Tidal Basin, Haynes Point to Wilson Bridge over the top of DCA. The restriction exempts helicopters entering this airspace for life-saving medical support, active law enforcement, active air defense, or presidential transport helicopter missions that must operate in this restricted area. Any helicopter operations outside these exemptions will be prohibited. These restrictions will remain in place until the NTSB completes its preliminary investigation of the air carrier incident, at which point it will be reviewed based on NTSB's report. Now, if you've ever been to that area, and I'm assuming, there are a lot of people that are listeners that have never been to DCA. I've flown in and out of DCA multiple times. I go down there to pick up my girlfriend when she flies in or out. Her family's in Florida, so she goes in and out of there a lot. If you look, you can see in this actual picture, I think, the Pentagon is very close to DCA, and the Pentagon itself has regular flights of Blackhawks flying around all the time. I assume that that's, generals flying from other air bases or from other military bases. Fort Meade's not too far away. That's up in where the NSA is housed. Maybe there are people from Langley, from the CIA headquarters, flying to the Pentagon. So it's a very, very busy area, and it's not really a surprise that they're making these kind of limitations. I guess what I do find a little surprising is that with it being such a busy area, and because they're supposed to have two people on staff, one person for aircraft, regular planes, and then one for helicopters. What do you guys think? What do you think of the fact that they didn't have people on? Now, I know there's a lot of talk of, DEI and stuff, and I know the more that I hear about this after the accident, that they were having significant problems actually staffing the people, and they were, if I understand correctly, they were turning people away based on their race. Do you think that this kind of action is actually going to solve the problem? And furthermore, do you think that the Trump administration, with their efforts to undo the DEI mess that we have in the government, do you think that that's going to prevent further accidents and further negative consequences from DEI policies in general?
You have something?
No, go ahead.
This looks more like they're trying to quell the fears of the public. Like, look, we're going to get rid of some helicopters so it's still safe. Because after this, I was like, I'm not flying out of DCA for a while. That was freaked me out. I'm like, I didn't know there were that many helicopters. So that's maybe what they're doing. Also, maybe general safety, dude, with the whole helicopter hitting the airplane. And they said that it was supposed to be two people watching that, and there was only one. I was like, is this because Trump just fired a bunch of people and they were short-staffed?
No. I do want to point out, just because I don't want people to lose their minds. The last time there was an accident of this magnitude was 2009, and that airspace has been this busy for every single day since then. And I don't know. And the last time there was an accident, it wasn't this airspace. It was the last time there was an accident in the United States. So this is terrible. This tragedy is horrible, but I want people to have a sober look or sober thought process when it comes to air travel and when it comes to this stuff. We are not in a situation where planes are going to start falling out of the sky all the time. And these policies do have ramifications, but it's still the safest way to fly, and you really don't need to be on edge just because you have to get into an airplane. I just wanted to say, I know that I'm throwing the wet blanket on the conspiracy theory people here and stuff, but it is important to remember this is an accident, and there have been No accidents since 2009. This is exceedingly rare. When there are accidents, it is almost always multiple human failures. Planes don't just fall out of the sky. I say that as you know, that plane looked like it fell out of the sky in Philadelphia. So maybe I'm going to eat crow about that.
One of the things that really shocked me was they showed video of the actual what the screens that the air traffic controllers are watching, and it looks like Atari 2600 not even 8-bit graphics, like a 2600K graphics. I don't know what they were. Crappy little an X and an L indicating an airplane, or it was an F, I think, in a triangle. Come on, like you have people looking at these things. They update every second, and it shows it appearing in a new position. Like, dude, we need some top like high tech monitoring systems that give you a warning if it shows that if a craft is approaching another craft ahead of time. They're looking at like 30-year-old technology.
I think that I saw the same screen that you're talking about, and above the two planes, they had red CA collision alarm, right? And I think, and tell me what you think of this, I think the reason why they go with very simple looking graphics is because the less information, because there are so many planes, right? There's so much stuff going on. I think that they go with simplified graphics like that because it's to keep the actual, only the most important information being fed to the people that are watching, because if there's too much stuff, you can get overwhelmed. Now, granted, I would absolutely agree that you have to be well trained, and maybe that is a training issue. But what do you think of that, Ian?
This is probably true. Like it's a triangle to indicate an airplane, and I think it was an L or an F to indicate the helicopter. You can see that. That's easy. I play Caves of Kood. It's a 2600-bit game where you get familiar with the symbols and what they mean, but like give us a warning, like an audible.
They have those. So I worked in a RAPCon.
Look out! You've worked where?
In a RAPCon. So when I was in the Air Force many moons ago, 2004 was when I joined, I was assigned to be an air traffic controller, and I did horrible at it, so I didn't continue it. But yeah, the reason why the technology is so old is because, keep it simple, stupid, is the not you, but you get the idea. It's complicated computers can fail or crash easier. This stuff has been working. It's analog. It's going to last. So it's been working for so long. They're going to keep it. And so there are things that start to warn when planes get close. Like it does come up on the screen. I remember that.
They did say that there were multiple indications that there was.
There's going to be indications on the plane. There's going to be indications to the controllers, and the controllers can only warn at the end of the day. Like
I heard that they said that I thought the helicopter was flying too high.
From what I saw,
that's what I saw. The helicopter was flying too high, specifically to keep it out of the flight path of a plane.
Yeah.
Well, the traffic controllers have a two-dimensional screen they're looking at. They don't see how high or low the things are
The
by
numbers
looking at
will
the screen.
indicate elevation.
So they've got to look away from the plane on the map to see a number up top to indicate its altitude. Like, give me a three-dimensional imagery thing to look at.
They should have a screen where it actually shows that the elevation with the symbol. Because I remember, again, when I was in the RAPCon, you would see the planes and it would indicate 5,000 feet or 6,000, and you would say things like descend and maintain 5,000.
And also the elevation or the altitude indicates direction, right? If you're at certain altitudes, you are for east-west. Certain altitudes are for north. And I'm just like throwing it out there. It's not exactly, but if you're at one altitude, that altitude means you're supposed to be heading on one direction. If you're at a lower altitude or a higher altitude, that altitude is for a different direction. So they're stacking the altitude. Not only is telling you how high you are, but if you're paying attention and flying properly, the altitude will also indicate what direction you should be going.
So this thing was at the wrong altitude, so it indicated to the controller they were flying in a different direction.
It was coming in. So I think when they say they're on approach, that means that they're going to be going through. But when you know how it takes like 20 minutes to get out of, like when you're at altitude and they're going to start descending, they don't just go down. They go down. Down. It's like they're taking steps down, and then once they get close enough, then they say I think on approach means you can actually begin descending and heading towards the runway. And I'm a layman, I don't know. I'm just telling you like the things that I've heard, but you would probably be able to tell better than I would.
So many, it's like 20 years ago, but yeah, they would slowly descend, and you would see the elevation going down. But again, if there's only one guy in there working and he's looking at multiple screens, he's got multiple planes. For what I remember from seeing on X is that he did send a warning, like, hey, do you see those? And that's all he can do at that point is like, hey, I warn you. And then he probably was looking at something else, and then bam.
They also said even when there's multiple people scheduled, a lot of times if somebody goes on break, they go down to just one, and that this has been going on. It's like you said, this has been going on for a long time without anything happening. And, you know, maybe today is just the day. Yeah. And the problem is, to me, is like, especially given how close this is to the inauguration and all of the all of the policies that Trump is now implementing through executive orders, is that DEI is a very big discussion that's going on right now. And this is not new to just this incident. I mean, over the last year, depending on how often you are on X or anything like that, there is a discussion where people talk about DEI specifically as it relates to flights and plane crashes. So in something, you know, whether it's like people getting on airplanes and stuff like this, so this has unlocked a lot of fear that people have regarding those things. So like I said, we were watching that crash earlier, and a lot of the discussion that was going on in the live chat, whether it was Fox News covering this, is people asking if this is something related to policy that hindered good hiring practices. And that's not an unreasonable thing for people to be afraid of, even if they haven't really looked for evidence of it in a particular case. What it does is it indicates that when somebody has that the first thing on their mind, it means that that's something that's in the consciousness of the public.
Yeah. And to Brett's point about this being an ongoing conversation, even though these are the first actual accidents that have happened in a long time, if you watch like these kind of watch air traffic controller X accounts and stuff like that, you would see that there are a lot of near misses. That kind of thing happens fairly frequently, and I don't know how much that is because of, you know, errors in the tower, errors with the pilots, you know, I don't know that we can quantify it either, you know.
How do you guys feel about integrating artificial intelligence into the control itself?
No.
So
Well,
got
I
a
mean,
machine saying, look out. Like maybe there's still a dude sitting there, but on top of that, you have different. If a guy has to get up and go take a piss, there's still an artificial intelligence, or like 9 of them, all watching the monitor, all warning crews and pilots, prepare, look, you know, incoming, look out, this, that, and like fail safes.
Again, you might be a more of an expert on this than I am, but isn't autopilot kind of what that does?
Most planes have instruments that they can each see the radar on the plane, and they'll see, oh yeah, there's one coming this way. This is just a extremely rare occurrence. So the pilots can see their own radar. They also can, you know, so they have IFR and VFR. They can, you know, visual flight rules versus instrumental flight rules. So they have their own instruments, and they have air traffic controllers also telling them about stuff. So there's all sorts of things. And, you know, if they do get close, something does start to beep. So remember that.
The Black Hawk was dark, meaning it wasn't showing up on radar?
No transponder, right?
So this is all on the government. This is fully to blame. Department of Defense. I mean, they owe the families a lifetime of servitude. They need to repay these people. Like, this is a government basically assault, an unintentional assault on the civilianry.
I don't know if I would go that far, because the way that I've heard some of it described is they were talking to the pilot of the Black Hawk, and they were saying, stay behind the regional jet. But there was a regional jet that was taking off, as well as one coming in. And so, if I understand correctly, the pilot and the helicopter, the tower and the helicopter pilot were communicating, and he said, they were telling him, stay behind the regional jet. And it seems like, again, I'm not saying that I have inside knowledge or whatever, but it seems like the pilot of the Black Hawk, thought he was talking about the plane that was taking off, and he was behind it. And actually, the tower was talking about the plane that was coming in, because they were both small, the same type or a similar type of regional jet. They were both not big jumbo jets. It wasn't like a 747 coming in or a 737. They were both smaller jets. And the pilot of the Black Hawk thought that he was talking about another one. Again, this is just what I heard. I didn't actually look into it and stuff. So I don't think that. I guess what I'm saying is that kind of strong language about an attack and stuff. This is people making mistakes, and whereas I'm 100% on board, the government can just print money out of nowhere, so yeah, pay all the families, absolutely, there's no problem in my opinion with that, but I don't think that this was there was any malice involved, and I don't think that it was any kind of I think it was just, you know, human error, and stuff like this does happen, as tragic as it is.
Unintentional assault. I use the word unintentional for sure, but like if a soldier unintentionally drops a grenade into a foxhole and kills 9 other soldiers, you still court-martial the guy. I mean, it doesn't matter if he intended to do it or not.
No, the pilot's dead, so
But who the controller that told him to stay behind vague jet number one?
Controller's not in the military.
And
The air traffic controller.
from what I can see, did his job. He did warn. If it wasn't understood properly, it's not on him. I mean, it would be on him if he did not give any warnings. But from what I can see from the audio, yeah, he did give warnings. It just may have just not been understood properly.
Yeah.
I guess it's just this like primal urge to lash out and blame someone is still resonating inside of me.
I mean, that's it goes back to human nature.
Yeah.
It's just, go back to the ancient times. Why is it not rained? Well, we need to probably kill this Steve because Steve forgot to make a sacrifice to the temple the other day.
Way to go, Steve.
We just want to blame someone to fix the solution. What you're feeling is perfectly natural.
And that's actually why, like you asked at the beginning, you said you listed what the government plans to do, and you asked, like, is that even necessary in this case? And that's because people have the primal urge to blame someone, so the government has to be seen doing something when something like this happens, even if there isn't necessarily known whether it's going to actually be effective or not.
Yeah. I mean, you can crucify the person that's the air traffic controller, but it doesn't mean that it's going to, and I mean figuratively, but it doesn't mean that it's going to prevent the next issue. I think that a sober approach to figuring out why it happened and doing more to staff these places. Maybe you take the government out. Maybe they should be all privatized. This is an argument that can be made.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.